What's up everyone, how's it going? They are going to be mad about this one because we made it to Friday again. I hope you all had a good week and let me know how your week went down in the comments. I'll wait. So yeah, I hope it went well, and if not, then maybe this will cheer you up a little bit. And now I have a few things to cover in this video, so we're just going to get right into it. We've all heard of crawlers. I've covered them pretty extensively on the channel. So I found this article from 2021 that kind of talks about a different kind of crawler, one that seems to be much more terrifying because it doesn't make sense in our regular purview of what reality is. So these crawlers that are talked about in this article don't have any arms, it's just legs and a torso. Sometimes there's not even a discernible head, it's just, like I said, legs and a torso. And they just kind of run around like that. I don't know about you, but that's more terrifying to me than a regular crawler. It kind of sounds like something you'd see in the Black Lodge in Twin Peaks or something. So this first encounter took place on December 12th, 2014. It was in Highland County, Ohio, around the area of Carmel. Now generally this stretch of road is said to be pretty lonely and pretty rural, so of course, it's going to be the place where someone sees something like this. On this particular evening in December, a 60-year-old former Marine and his wife were driving down this road, and they were just cresting a hill, kind of lost in their own thoughts, just kind of spaced out. The 60-year-old man then said that out of the darkness came this bizarre thing that had a thin torso, two muscular legs that propelled it along, and it had no arms. It was covered in some type of gray skin. In fact, it was so fast that by the time that he shouted for his wife to look, the thing had already disappeared onto the other side of the road. And now even though that she didn't actually witness it herself, she did report the sighting to Ohio MUFON. And this is what she said. After turning on Carmel Road, which leads to our road, we went around the curve by Carmel Church, and then up a small incline, and approximately 10 feet over the incline and in front of our truck, this alien ran across the road and into the woods. My husband saw it. He is a skeptic, almost 60 years old, and a proud Marine. He wouldn't have admitted to seeing it if he hadn't been in shock. I had him draw it for me when we got to the house. He says it was an asphalt gray color, and just about 7 feet tall. No arms that he could see, but its legs were muscular. There was no jawline, and its legs were bent backwards and leaned forward as it ran. And there's another weird detail about this that I'm not sure if it's related or not, but they say that there is a spot on their front lawn that is in a perfect circle, and it stays fresh green, no matter the weather. So I don't know if you feel the same, but that second detail kind of reminds me of a fairy circle in some ways, especially the part where it's in a circle and it kind of stays green all year round. So if you think that maybe a fairy circle would have something to do with this entity, like such as a portal of some kind or whatever, then let me know what you think about that down in the comments. But as for this entity, the fact that it has no arms is creepier to me. What do you think it was, though? Do you think it was some type of crawler? Do you think it was some type of alien like the wife said here? Do you think that it was something else entirely? Do you think that it was from here at all? I know that when it was first talked about, a lot of people thought that it was some kind of interdimensional being of some kind. It may be just like a schizo sense or something, but it kind of sounds like an experiment to me. But that's not the only sighting of this thing either. Now, apparently online, they've been come to know as night crawlers, which is a really cool name. But then they're also called walking pants, and I think that's kind of funny. I don't know why, I just think it is. But then this other guy, Frank Del Ora, says, I saw one of these almost 10 years ago in Bronxville, New York. At exactly 2:30 in the morning, I was hanging in front of my house with two friends, and it seemed like someone called 911 because a brigade of trucks and cars came flying down my dead-end street, and in the blink of an eye, the brigade had all somehow already turned around and were driving the opposite way, as if the time in between never happened. And then this thing, running backwards, was sprinting across the street and ran under a light where we could see this translucent gray skinny thing with no arms and backwards legs, and it vanished. But the whole time it was somehow communicating with me telepathically that it wasn't going to hurt me, and it made me feel safe. Now, it's not mentioned here, but one thing that I find extremely off-putting and scary about this whole thing is how easily these beings, whatever they are just able to manipulate our emotions and thoughts. I know that in a lot of the more recent encounters that I do, especially on this podcast, there's a lot of entities that seem to just be able to speak with us telepathically, completely as if it's normal, as if it's an everyday thing. How they're able to do that, whether it's some ability they have or some piece of technology they have, I don't know. Now with like reptilians, I can see how that would be like a technological thing, but with this being in particular, how it's just legs and skin, and it was still able to project to him that it was just like, oh, I'm not going to hurt you, which for me, if something like that was like, oh, I'm not going to hurt you, I'd be even more skeptical of it. It'd probably give you the same feeling. I guess the only analogy I can think of is when you turn on your computer after a Windows update and it says, oh, your files are right where you left them. And I'm thinking, not gonna lie, that sounds like something that someone who screwed about with my files would say. So in this case, it's like, oh, I'm not gonna hurt you. And I'm like, well, I don't know, this whole situation seems kind of threatening to me. But then again, maybe they aren't threatening. Maybe they're not from here, they know they're not from here, and it's like a temporary thing. Maybe we're like a pass-through to a different dimension. Maybe, actually, I wonder how many entities do use here as a pass-through to a different dimension now that I think of it. It's weird. Let me know what you think about these things and their abilities down in the comments. And I suppose that can kind of bring us into our next thing. Are they what they appear to be, or are they shapeshifters? In October 1973, Stan Gordon investigated a weird case that happened in a rural part of Pennsylvania. It was in his 2010 book Silent Invasion. A group of concerned locals had seen a UFO land somewhere in a farmland, and then when they reached the area where this UFO had touched down, the air was filled with the sound of what seemed to be a crying baby. As the group got closer, they could see a significantly sized dome-like object sitting in the darkness of a large pasture. And after this, two large Bigfoot loomed out of the shadows and proceeded toward them. Now obviously you're gonna be scared during this. They raised their guns and started firing, but the bullets had no effect, and all the while they were still hearing the sound of a baby that sounded like it was in distress, but they never found any trace of an actual baby. It seemed to be that these Bigfoot or something in the air around the flying saucer was making this noise, although the men seemed to pinpoint that it actually was the Sasquatch making it. And now this is where I ask about the shapeshifters. Do you think that these were two actual Bigfoot coming out of the darkness that were from the flying saucer? Or do you think that the aliens simply knew that this is a folkloric creature here that a lot of people are afraid of and turned into it just to kind of, I don't know, ward people off? Again, let me know what you think in the comments. All of this may seem a little disjointed, but I'm just kind of bringing you along with my thought process here, which is usually pretty disjointed as it is. And now the crying baby thing kind of brings me to this encounter from 1964 in Texas. The first encounter was had by some men who were out fishing. It was pretty hot, and they were just kind of lounging around the side of the creek. This creek is said to be pretty large for a creek. And all of a sudden, this very tall, hairy creature came out and roared and beat its chest and scared the hell out of everybody. Now, whatever it was, a Bigfoot or a shapeshifter, it was never seen again after this one encounter. But the bridge that spanned over the creek, which is demolished now, became known as the Crybaby Bridge. The reason why is because a lot of people, especially enough to make the bridge be named this, would experience baby-like wailings that were always heard, day or night. However, everybody seemed to know that something was wrong. Maybe it's that sense we all have, and just the sound of a baby out in the woods, you kind of know it's not going to be a good time if you go looking for it. But in this case, nobody went and looked for the baby, which you can imagine why. If other people went and saw this very large creature, then why would you go look for a baby that's going to be in the same area where this thing is, and you only kind of hear it whenever this thing may or may not be around? And the reason why I say shapeshifter is because in 1969, this same Bigfoot, or the same area, something else happened. Over a period of roughly 5 weeks, people began to see this massive creature again. However, it seemed to run like a human and like a dog. In fact, sometimes it would alternate between the two, running like a human and then get down all fours and seem to be able to run like a dog, like it was second nature to it. Now, does that mean it's a dog man and not a Bigfoot? Or does it mean that there's some kind of shape-shifting going on? And now, this is in the same vein as everything else, but Nick Redfern wrote a book called Kushaka, in search of Alaska's other Bigfoot. And this creature is known to the native tribes of Alaska and all down the BC coast and into the northern Pacific Northwest. The two tribes that he mentions in specific are the Tsimshian and the Tlingit. They are known as the people of the tides and inside the Skeena River, respectively. And they talk about this being that can transform itself. It can look like a Bigfoot. It can look like something else. In fact, it even translates to a land otter man in English. And sometimes it can take the shape of large wolves. Usually when it's sighted as walking upright, but sometimes people do see it running on all fours, and sometimes people even see it shapeshift into some other being like a wolf, or in this case, an otter man or a Bigfoot. And something else too, in one of the tribes, the inside the Skeena River Tlingit tribe, the animal, the otter, is seen as one that is merely a ruse. It's kind of seen as something that's deceiving, I guess. So it makes sense that the Kushaka translates to land otter man. And I'm pretty sure I've done this encounter on the channel before, but I think it really fits in here. So this is what these people encountered. I was a passenger in my friend's truck. His girlfriend is in the back with her friend. We were making a long drive from Denver to a lake in the middle of nowhere in Nebraska. The women were taking forever to get ready, so we had to leave around 5 or 6 p.m. The drive there was at least 5 hours, so it was dark for more than half the drive. The trip was pretty much unremarkable until we got into Nebraska. Everything looked creepy about this place. There were tons of deer that would jump out if you weren't paying attention. I was getting tired. My friend's girlfriend, who was using a GPS on her phone or maps or whatever, told us to turn down a dirt road. It looked like seriously the middle of nowhere. My buddy and me are spooked, thinking that we may have taken a wrong turn or that the map is wrong. So, we just kind of take out our pistols and kind of keep them by our feet, just in case something happens. We're driving down this straight dirt road for miles and miles. Every now and then, we start to see eyes as we go. Sometimes we see a deer, but mostly just eyes. And then all of a sudden, on the right side of the road, there's a naked man sprinting along the road away from the truck. He's outrunning us at 30 miles per hour. I can't even describe it. And all of a sudden, he sticks his arms out and starts flapping his arms like wings. And then he literally, before our eyes, turns into an owl and peels off. This left us all terrified. I think I was so puckered that I was ripping out the seats. The story goes on a little bit from here, but that was the most spooky part. I would have thought I was hallucinating if all of us hadn't seen the exact same thing. So the reason why that I included this one at the end is, how do we know exactly what is the original form or real form of these beings? Is it something like the crawler with no arms and legs, or walking pants, I guess? Is it something like the Bigfoot that were mentioned here that seemed to be able to run like a dog? Or is it a dog man? But it seemed, whatever it was, it seemed to run like a dog and like a human, almost seamlessly together. Is it something like this Kushaka, which can change shape from a Bigfoot to giant wolves to anything else? Let me know what you think down in the comments. And even though this one was a little more disjointed, I think I'll leave it off there. I hope you enjoyed this shorter episode of the podcast, and I hope that you enjoyed Wednesday's video, and I hope you'll stick around for Sundays as well. So, with that, I thank you for pulling up a stump. As always, there are links in the description if you want to send your story in, or if you would like to donate to the channel. And now down below, there's a join button. So far, there's just 3 tiers. They don't really do anything yet, but YouTube told me that I had to set them up, so I set them up. There's 99 cents, $1.99, and $2.99. So far, you get a little badge by your name. I hope, if I can figure it out, then I'm going to make it so that there's custom emojis and custom badges and stuff. But that's something I'll have to figure out later. Either way, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you'll stick around for Sundays. Thank you for watching. Thank you for pulling up a stump, and I'll see you then.